Quick update. Want to go over a feature we're adding to the dual bands indicator for both the NT8 and the Quantower version. This is Quantower. So let me explode this view a bit. But basically what we're doing is we're going to have a dot placed above what we call trend following bullish and bearish alerts, or we're going to call it a TF bearish, TF bullish. So anytime the main bands are in a downward slope and we get lift of the fast bands above the mid band, so the fast bands in red and green are lifted above the middle of the main bands, and we get X amount of line segments up on both the upper and lower portion of the main bands and a segment down, then you would get a scalping entry. That entry would be right about there. Stop just above most recent price pivot, and off you go. So anyhow, uh, for basically kickbacks in a downtrend that don't go all the way outside of the main bands, and that can happen when you get in hard downtrends or strong uptrends. So let me kind of show you a better visualization of this and a couple better examples for both TF bullish and TF bearish signals. Traders in our group wanted this. I agree with this. This is a really high probability setup, and it's a good setup for doing trend following. So let's go take a look. So when I get a certain amount of bars pullback, anytime the main bands are in a uptrend, as I get pullbacks and lift on both the lower, so we get that little hook in the fast bands. So if we get that hook after X amount of bars or I shouldn't say bars, but segments of the fast bands are down, and then we get one up on both the upper and lower, as long as price at that moment of time that we have a bar close is below the mid band for long, then you would get a long signal. Now how you would trade these are quick scalps. You put a stop just below the most recent price pivot. And NinjaTrader 8, you can use your ATM function, get in the trade. Market lifts a bit, chops around, then eventually runs. So you get X amount of distance in your intended trade direction. You can have then stop, go to break even plus, and trail anytime you push outside the outer bands. That's a smart time to grab profit. Okay, so we had another period right here where we had some consecutive bars down and then lift. So we'd have another signal there, pull back, consecutive bars down on both upper and lower and lift. That would be one, that would be one, and so on. This one would not be one because when the hook takes place, price is above the midband. So we want to work midband, the area below the midband in longs, and the area above the midband on a short. So we get lift, several consecutive bars of lift, and then one down. So when both the upper and lower fast bands hook downward after a set of consecutive up bars, that would be your entry point. So what we're going to get is whatever the color of the upper band is, you'll get a dot that will be placed. That will be an output that you can use for third-party tools like Algo Studio Pro that connects to NinjaTrader 8 and Quantower. You can get in a scalp entry when that hook downward happens in your automated trade setup that you set custom parameters. You can have your stop, get X amount of distance in the money, stop to break even plus. As market's running in your intended direction, you can trail that. Any sort of price outside the bands, or however you set up your custom trailing would dictate what will happen with the trade. So the key is for a short, we need the entry to be, at the mid band. Well, not at it, but we need it above. So for long entries, we need the entry below the mid band. For short entries, we need this overall pattern that we're targeting with price interacting with our dual bands, no repainting, no recalculating indicator. That's, it's an overall a pattern and price that we're trapping with the indicator. So you get lift, hook on both the upper and lower bands, entry, quick scalp. Lift, hook on both the upper and lower bands. If the market at that moment of time is above the midband, it is. Entry, boom. Lift, hook, get a certain amount of consecutive up bars, an upper lower, get one down, you're in, and so on. So this is a really good quick scalping approach. You'll have the dot for both longs and shorts. So in this case, the dot would be red, matching your upper, the fast bands, the upper line segment coloring. But you can go in and set the coloring to whatever you want. You'll have audible alerts and you'll have outputs that can be tied to third-party tools. So just the same thing for the long side, you'd have a green dot, audible alert. You can turn on the audible alert, turn it off. You can turn the dots on and off. You can change the color of the dots, and their outputs that can be tied to third-party tools. So you can go in, set up your own custom automation, do your own optimization, and go on the attack. So there's three ways that I use the tools. I do work mean reversion entry points. I tend to hit those when the market is at key levels. We've either had a key level test or a key level sweep. Then I'm willing to go in and look for mean reversion type trades. I like the trend following trades. I probably trade those the most, where we'll have the dots. I do a lot of that. There's one other trade that I look for. So here's another way that I use the bands, or this dual bands approach. I've taken the fast bands and I've narrowed them. So more narrow than I would typically have a setting. So I'll have a specific chart set up just to look for this. So in this chart, I'm not looking for mean reversion. I could be, still looking for the TF bullish, TF bearish, trend following bullish, trend following bearish with the dots trades. I could still be looking for those. But the other thing I look for is a collapse in distance between the two bands. And a lot of times this will happen right after a mean reversion event. And, I just kind of know what to look for. I'm just used to it. So I see a mean reversion event, market maybe challenges a key level, rotates, but then it accelerates. We get very linear price action. You can see the bands start getting very narrow. And what I do is I watch for those. When I see those, I'll just throw liquidity in there, fairly tight stop. And, it's basically like a quick scalp trade. I see lift, 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 rotate. The bands are getting narrow, getting linear. We have a linear run of price. And the candlesticks, the speeds that I'm on, these are easy to trade. It's not like this just happens in 5 seconds. This actually takes some time. But during this period of time, price is very linear in nature. It has a lot of momentum to it. And you definitely get these on the upside and you definitely get these on the downside. And fortunately, in the last few weeks, we finally have gotten some volatility back to these markets. So I'm getting good ones to the upside and I'm getting a lot of good ones to the downside. And we needed that. The markets were just so absent of volatility for so long that you just have to sit there and basically wait for long side these events. Like here was one. I just kind of feel it too. I start seeing price, the oscillations get tighter and tighter, and then it starts tightening up and running. Now, the beautiful thing in something like Quantower or NinjaTrader 8 using Algo Studio Pro, I can have a running bar by bar measurement of the gap between bands. I can set an Algo Studio Pro, make this an algorithmic criteria that when it happens, I can have maybe the background of my chart shaded a certain color or get a line with a audible tone. So I know that the width between the bands has diminished to a level where there's nothing, no other reason but the market's getting linear. So now that we can tie Algo Studio Pro, a third-party tool, to transact custom, trade activity, taking outputs from our bands, that gives me a lot of flexibility to attack different types of, trade setups. Or I could just have it where it's giving me an audible alert where I hear the noise, I see a certain symbol, like maybe I have the area shaded where it starts, and then I can decide if I want to go on and throw some liquidity at that with a certain style of, a built-in bracket trade. So there's lots of capabilities with the dual bands. We have mean reversion trades, we have trend following trades, and I call these linear price action or high momentum trades, where I'm jumping into periods of high momentum. Now, earlier this morning, I did see one to the downside. Price got very linear in nature, high momentum, and those are really easy, quick scalping setups to take advantage of when you take something like the dual bands indicator and then tie that into a really nice third-party tools application like Algo Studio Pro and go after these setups as automated signals with alerts to give you audible alerts or to do it fully automated. And again, our dual bands indicator, the fast bands and the main bands do not repaint or do not recalculate on live feed or when running in replay mode. So if you have any questions, info@gridalgo.com, and great talking to you this morning.